Thank you. Ladies, gentlemen, excellencies, Arctic friends, and friends of the Arctic. It is my great pleasure to be here to represent the Norwegian government and the Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council to convey an important message to you. And what better place and occasion and a venue to convey this message than here at the Arctic Circle Assembly. And my message is this: the Arctic Council is very much alive. The Arctic Council will continue to be alive because the Arctic Council must stay alive. If we lose it, we will not get it back. If we lose it, we will lose the very linchpin of the Arctic cooperation, and it is irreplaceable. We need to keep the Arctic Council alive for the future of the generations living in the Arctic, for the Arctic people and the Arctic states. But friends, I have to be honest, and we all have to be honest, that it hasn't been easy. During the Norwegian chairship of the Arctic Council, the Council has been in its most challenging state ever. But it is not due to the Council itself. Rather, it is due to the geopolitics around and shifting megatrends. Does anyone know what the number 426.7 stands for? Or rather, the number 362? Does it ring any bells? Well, the first number is the particles per million, the ppm, measuring the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere this year. And the second number, the 362, this was the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere in 1996, the year that the Arctic Council was established. Now, the ppm, the particles per million, are perhaps the clearest measurements we have indicating that global warming is happening. And at the same time as the planet has become hotter, multilateral relations have grown colder. And speaking of cold, in 1989, the Cold War ended with the fall of the Berlin Wall. The ppm was then 352. And the decade that followed was the golden age of globalization, multilateralism, democracy on the rise, and many of the multilateral forums born not very long after that, the Arctic Council as one of them. Now, if we fast forward to today and look at the last 10 years that we have behind us, well, we can all see that the trends, well, they're quite opposite to what they were in 1989 and the decade after that. Democracy is under pressure, so is multilateralism. Trust and cooperation is in decline. Great power rivalry, or competition rather, because there are actually a number of megatrends beginning on the letter C. Competition is one of them, conflict is yet another, and the third is climate change. Now, as for climate change, that is the very reason to why we need the Arctic Council to stay alive, because climate change does not care about geopolitics. It doesn't care about geography. Now, as the ppm, or particles per million, continues to rise, we need the Arctic Council to represent the interest of the people living in the Arctic, in the areas that are most affected by the dramatic consequences of the temperatures growing hotter and higher. So we need the Arctic Council to address these common issues of Arctic people and Arctic states. But there can be no business as usual, as has already been said from this stage. And given the current political situation, or let me be direct, due to Russia's illegal, brutal war of aggression in Ukraine, there could be no business as usual. And so when Norway took over the chairship of the Arctic Council from Russia, the organization was, well, paralyzed. But our ambition has been to make sure it survives. And we have done so through incremental steps. We started out with a written procedure. we moved on to digital expert level meetings. And now, as we speak, there are projects being developed, work plans being updated, and the knowledge and experience being created and shared. No, there hasn't been any high-level meetings or ministerial meetings, but we have managed to make sure that the Arctic Council is alive. And friends, none of it would have been possible if the Norwegian chairship was working alone. So therefore, I wish to thank the member states of the Arctic Council and the indigenous organization, the Arctic Friends. And I would also wish to thank the Friends of the Arctic, that is, all of the observer states, for their support and their cooperation. And not least, and maybe most importantly, I would like to thank a special person who has worked tirelessly to make sure that the Arctic Council is in a position and a state where we can say, well, it's more optimistic than it was 2 years ago. And that is the Norwegian chair of the Arctic Council, Mr. Morten Høglund. Dear Morten, Dear Morten, due to your tireless effort, the Council is alive, and we are able to look forward towards new important steps in the future of the Arctic Council. Now, as for the road ahead, I can share with you some important milestones. And the first one coming up at the Climate COP 29 in Baku, where the Norwegian chairship will be arranging an important side event, and our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Espen Barth Eide, will be participating there. And the event is called A Message from the Frozen World, and it will be focusing on the impacts of permafrost and cryosphere, changing cryosphere, and what impact that has on global environmental and climate systems. But not enough with that. In January, in beginning of January, we will arrange a youth platform focusing on empowerment of the youth in the Arctic. It will be created by the youth, for the youth, and it will take place in Tromsø just before the Arctic Frontiers Conference. And not enough with that either. In March, we will arrange a conference in Bodø on Arctic emergency prevention, preparedness, and response. We will also continue to work on the Wildland Fires Initiative, and most importantly, of course, in May next year, we look forward to handing over the chairship to the Kingdom of Denmark to continue the important work of keeping the Council alive. Friends, the fact that the context is challenging does not make the work of the Council less important. On the contrary, it is more important to have this platform to discuss and cooperate on issues that are of common interest to the people living in the Arctic now more than ever. Because it's about Arctic politics, and it's about global politics, as has been discussed on this very stage today. So the Arctic Council is indispensable. And friends, I think we can safely say that, as such, it must be sustained for the broader service of mankind. Thank you for your attention.